Nature is crying out for healing people. Beautiful ignited souls, I am Crime Queen, and we are about to break the law of silence. And guess what? I am your partner in crime. I'm the one now saying, go on, you can do it. Now, when I was much younger at school, and it was always the case of saying, oh, you're the one with the big mouth. Now, they didn't just mean that literally because I've got full lips. I think they really meant it that I was very vocal in the sense of, if I saw something didn't seem right or someone wanted to ask a question and they'd say, go on, you ask. It's as if there was a part of me that felt I had to be good and just do as I was told, whether it was something good, bad, or ugly, I don't know. But, again, I learned in a tough way about breaking the law of silence. Now, I want to share with you my experience, which I know I have shared in my videos and talking about breaking the law of silence. But I want to do this specific as a demarcation of my shift. By the way, I will confess I have cried a few tears today, and I realized that it was about letting go of the residue of pain of breaking the law of silence, people. Yes, because by me breaking the law of silence, and I'm talking about sexual abuse, I'm talking about sexual trauma, I'm talking about molestation and that kind of thing, which has been, reverberating in the air everywhere we go. It's R. Kelly or Brother Polite, or, there's so many names. In fact, there is one movie I was watching, and I thought, oh, let me just check out his real name, and that was, oh, I don't clearly remember which name it is right now. But however, and then I saw, oh, he's got charges of sexual abuse. And then there was a pic of him lifting somebody's skirt in public. So sometimes we find that people really dig a grave for themselves, just like I would be going, I'm listening to people and say, go on, and you do it, and then find out, that I'm the one who, if it was often, of course, something unpleasant, to get the blame. Now, I want to speak, as I say, um, encourage people to break the law of silence, but do this constructively. Find ways of learning about yourself and how it's going to serve you best to break the law of silence. A lot of things are happening, and you hear about me too, and so on. Now, I didn't even know so much about the Me Too movement, to be very honest, until I had one of my clients was talking to me because I was sort of like in a cocoon, simply because I have got to learn to travel my path. Now, if it means I get companion on the way, fair enough. If not, it's my path. I have learned about this, and so I tread along. If I someone else meets up with me, and we do this journey together, like whether it is via video, whatever it is, having a conversation with someone I meet or something, then I am with that, but I have learned not to necessarily find not to necessarily go with the crowd, so to speak. So you have to find out what works for you. Now, what I really want to share with you about breaking the law of silence, and sometimes, it can take a while depending on people's experiences. However, I will stress that I don't think nowadays you need to take as long as I do, like 40 years with the children of Israel going through the land or wandering in the desert. Wandering. It's wondering whether I should do this, wondering whether I should stay or go or speak or keep silent. There is a way of going within your heart, within. And of course, of all the videos that I have done on numerology, will also help you to understand that there is within each and every one of us, there's that chamber within us that you can get the key. Speaking of key, this year, of whatever is left of it, is really key. And we are getting into the climax of that click you're going to hear, where that door actually opens or that gate actually opens wider, because it is a demarcation of all the woodworm coming up to the surface, if you like, when it comes to sexual abuse, sexual molestation, and so on. Now, I also hope that there are people who tend to think like, say, Kelly is just being marked or persecuted because of his success. Whether that is in the equation or not, we tend to have this kind of argument to overshadow a reality that is happening in mainly statistically the Black society. And I want to touch upon that as well. I want to touch upon quite a few things, so I'm hoping that you will stick around with subsequent videos that I will be doing. So why I say that 2021, so I mean 2021, which is in number five. It is the five year. It is a year five to be more precise. A year five. The number five, of course, I have said that I'm not doing numerology, but this is one of the things why I shed a few tears today, because it's about leaving behind the old skin, which is you could say, where the serpent changes its skin. And that's what I was experiencing today with this new skin. It is so tender, and it is that emblem of rebirth. And so I'm saying all of this to show or to explain that this is the polarity of newness or new creation that we are moving into when we speak of the fifth dimension. People are now shedding of the old skin and have to face that tender skin, the tenderness of rebirth. So, this story of mine, which I keep saying I'm going to tell you, and I think I have promised that. No, I was in my teens, and I said this before. It feels more like 13 going on 14. I was um horribly there was an attempt rape on me, um and of course this was just really one of the most horrible experiences that I had encountered. And this person was actually my neighbor who lived right opposite me. However, I'm not meaning to go into all the details of the story, but there was one person, or I was believed. I couldn't say I wasn't believed in that scenario because, of course, I was so traumatized that when my uncle, who was there, and his workers on the farm, they said, "Well, what happened to you?" Because, like, an hour before, I was all happy and skipping around, like, being in a playground. But of course, that was on the plantation, because as an earth sign, I hadn't understood why I love the earth so much and all this greenery. Even if I had to carry all loads on my head and bananas and pumpkins, but there was still another aspect of all that green, and the water just trickling in the river or ravines and so on, and and the insects that I would notice and so on. And when the rain would fall and how you'd feel a little shiver and, all these ups and downs and paths and so on. There was something, and wildflowers and butterflies and all of those things seemed to have given me a degree of comfort. So there is what happened when I was kind of missing that kind of feeling or scenery, and I was living in town with my grandma, that I begged my uncle, look, I want to go up to the country with you, and eventually he gave in. That's when that happened to me. So that was not something that I could make up a story. And so my aunt, who was responsible for me, of course, at the time that she lived in the city or worked in the city, when she came to visit where, well, grandma and son visit me, and of course, bring me lots of gifts. There was still a lot of pain because, and of course, I was also thinking something was wrong. I had, it just was so confusing. So when she heard, of course, of the story and she asked me the question, of course, the story is all consistent. She decided to bring charges or sue the young man in question. So, to cut the story short, I remember being in the court, being asked to enter the courthouse just so that the judge would see me. And of course, in St. Lucia, this was, but the judge was a white man. I think it was one time I saw a white man very, very close and looked at me with such empathy that I could still see. And and he looked at me and he says, "Oh, but she's very young." And I feel that this is where the 13 I'm remembering about. I was 13 going on 14. I wasn't quite 14 yet. So this is what had happened to me. So the young man, I was told, was found guilty, and because of the persecution, the second persecution that I got from my neighbors who of course where he lived, um, which was it was like if there was like uh let's see, I think there were about five young ladies living in this household. So you can imagine, um opposite where my well, opposite where I lived in two houses at the time. We could say both my sister and my grandma. I don't know whether I was just too much for one household or whatever it is, but I lived in many houses and at many times, on different times. So, um, but I say all this to say that this is when I had learned to keep silent. I had learned to keep silent because of the persecution that I got, not only from the neighbors, but also I felt very dirty, very at fault. I blamed myself for all this that I had done to this family, where, of course, the young man, which I knew nothing where he had been or what had happened to him. I just knew he was found guilty. And it, of course, turned out that over 40 years I had not seen or heard of this young man until I went to visit my cousin in the hospital one day and told me, "Oh, this young man. Well, he wasn't so young anymore because he's about 6 years, or at least 6 years my senior." My cousin said, "Oh, cuz meet my brother, and he's across the bed." And I said, "Oh, your brother? I didn't know you had another brother. I know of your twin brother, but not, yeah, on my dad's side." So that's what St. Lucia is like. You could have your next door neighbor, or be mindful. You could get chatted up by a brother who had been, you know, because everyone's into everyone, having children all over the place. And, so that's the nature of it. So, anyway, it was her brother. And he said, "Oh, hi." And I said, "Oh, hi." And just as well, I am just so thankful that I didn't get to shake his hand because normally, you go, "Hi, pleased to meet you," and that sort of thing. And I wasn't in, that, yeah, for some reason, that didn't happen. And they said, "So which part of St. Lucia you're from?" And I said, "Maycood." And he said, "Oh, are you? Because I am from there." And I said, where did you live there? Because um, I knew almost everybody because my grandma was a merchant, if you like. She sold coals, breadfruit, mangoes, everything, our front room was the shop. So, um, and when he said where he lived, I said, "So you should know me then. You should remember me." And on saying that, I know at that moment, with the posture of turning his head away from me, if there was a hole right there, he would just step into it without asking how deep it is. So I give this story as to say everything has a season, every situation, every scenario. There's a stage for maturity. Obviously, I was not ready to have this kind of encounter. I am thankful that I got to have this encounter to realize how healed I am from this scenario. Or even if you were not, it would be something to let you know where you are. It's that sort of situation we encounter to let us know how much growth is necessary, how much forgiveness is necessary, how much love that we need to give or share. And this is what is happening now in our world today. So when people are now speaking of Kelly or Brother Polite or whoever or Malachi York or whoever it is in this vein of getting who's allegedly which is like in Brother Polite, for instance, is his case is still ongoing. I haven't had an update on that, for instance, but I know that everything has a season, and this is the season for unearthing all these kinds of sins, if you like, however you want to, whatever terminology you want to put on it, crime scene, um, molestation, whatever it is. This is the season because people, we are moving into a new dimension. This is a new creation, and this new creation has its parallel with this. We are coming to forming a whole. We are coming to forming one. This is a new creation. So you need to be able to see clearly and have clear judgment of what it is you are taking with you into that new state. You need to be conscious of what you're taking with you. It's like being on a journey and you are packing what you need to take with you, or saying, "Well, I need this and I don't need that." Everyone is being given the same opportunity to make that choice. What are you taking with you into this new dimension? Are you going to put on a facade and say, "Well, this isn't real and it's all a cover up"? When are we going to stop, people? When are we going to stop and see the reality of what is? What it is that we cannot pretend anymore Some of us can if we choose to, but it's not the time for pretending. It's not the time for, it's not the time right now for playing games. It's a time for being real. It's a time for taking inventory of what is happening in your life. It is a time for acknowledging how your behavior, your beliefs, and your action is impacting on not only your life, but the life of others. We are now taking up the baton. This is what it's like a relay race. We are now handing over the baton for many of us who are moving into the fifth dimension. A baton was handed to us where we had to, for many people who have been sexually molested or abused or traumatized, you were handed a baton. It could have been one from your ancestors. However, you are now at a position to be able to use your discretion of saying, what do I do with this? How do I acknowledge the entirety of this and to know what to take, what to reject? How can I heal the hurt even of my ancestors? Because it is by your healing that they become healed because they are part of who we are. So it's time that we think of how we're going to break the law of silence. Now, do join me again. Please like and subscribe to this channel where we are all going to get into the new heavens, the fifth dimension. People stay ignited as we get onto this new dimension. Thank you for watching. Stay ignited.